Hey Mom, are we going to Grandpa's this year? Summer vacation is just around the corner. My son came over to me and asked with an excited face. Well, your dad can't get time off, so it'll be just you and me. But if that's okay, let's go together. With that, my son raised his hands and cheered happily. My name is Jessica, a working mom of 38 raising a child. I had been job hunting since my son was born, but luckily got rehired at my old workplace around the time he started elementary school, and have been working mainly from home. My son has grown up, now in the 5th grade. I'm considering the next steps in my work life as well. My husband is 2 years older, at 40. He was an ambitious salesman when we got married, but changed jobs 3 years ago, forgetting the favors he owed his old company, supposedly because of a better offer. For some reason, his salary, which should have been increased, has decreased, and the conditions are worse than at his previous company with long hours of overtime every day. My parents live in the countryside at a rural farm in Nebraska, and my son has been watching farm work since he was little. Now he joyfully helps out whenever he goes to the countryside. My parents seem very pleased to be able to work in the field with their grandson and are always enthusiastic about teaching him. I used to be a little embarrassed that our home was a farm, but now I'm glad that this is where I grew up, and when I go back to the countryside, I help out in the fields again after a long time. My husband, having grown up in the city, dislikes the countryside, and whenever we go to my parents' place, he arranges work, even if he has to force it, as an excuse not to go. He seems to think I haven't noticed, but it's obvious. I'd like to spend about a week in the countryside this year. What about you? I asked my husband just to check.
I'm busy with work. I plan on taking my vacation later in the summer.
It's always the same. Well, I guess staying a week at your in-laws can be unpleasant. But my son is looking forward to it, so this year I took my son and went to the countryside for fun. Then I get contacted almost every day by my husband.
Where's my change of clothes? What should I eat for dinner?
It's always such things. I know my husband is not good at housework, so I prepared his clothes so he doesn't have to do laundry, and I've frozen meals and instant meals so he should be able to eat if he can use the microwave. He's a grown man, so if he doesn't like it, he can eat out or buy something. Despite telling him that, he kept asking me questions. It makes me want to tell him to give me back the precious time I've spent preparing for these unnecessary interruptions. When I get home, there are unwashed laundry, uncollected trash, and everything is in disarray. I can't help but sigh. I tried talking to my husband, but he simply responded,
I was tired from work, can't be helped.
Just as I expected. I usually work, take care of our son, and do house chores, yet how is it that he can't do anything, even his personal tasks, in just 1 week? I feel frustrated, but I can't bring myself to start a fight that's clearly on the horizon. A month later, our son, who had just returned from visiting our relatives in the countryside, seemed to have more moments of contemplation. I thought he might just be missing the family he had stayed with. When I asked him why, his answer was surprisingly mature. Grandpa and Grandma seem to be struggling with their farm work. I wish there was an easier way for them. Apparently he was concerned about his grandparents. I was touched by his empathy and felt proud of his growth. Later, during a rare visit to the office, I had a casual chat with the boss and mentioned this conversation. My son was worried about his grandparents who work in the fields. My boss seemed intrigued by my comment. Apparently, they were planning to apply our company's technology to agriculture and start a new project. Despite being a small company, we have developed various products. They want to introduce those to agriculture. In other words, to implement IT solutions in farming. They were looking for farms willing to collaborate for a pilot project, so I immediately talked to my parents, agreed to assist, and they decided to participate. Since then, there's been a new spark in my life. The nature of my work has shifted from mundane tasks to creative ones. The prospect of helping my parents and the excitement of coming up with new ideas keeps me exhilarated. I suppose I look just like my son, who's eager to go visit the countryside again. This is the kind of work I've always wanted to do. Seeing me like this, my husband, misinterpreting my enthusiasm, asks me in a bad mood,
Are you having an affair or something?
Excuse me? Taken aback by his outrageous question, I let out a surprised squeak. I had to explain the situation to him again. It's not an affair, I'm just enjoying my work. I've discussed it with my husband, but his response has always been nonchalant, just an, This time, however, he surprisingly smirked and dismissively said,
You're turning into a farmer now, huh?
I was annoyed by his condescending attitude towards farming and rural life. But thinking it's best for our son to have both parents, I've never considered separating from him. But life's turning points can't come out of the blue. A few months later, I ended up leaving my job to start my own venture. I found that there were more things I wanted to do on my own, and after discussions with my company, it was decided that I would go independent but still collaborate with my current company. I had been talking to my husband about it for a while, but when it actually came to leaving my job, a big incident occurred. I approached my husband when he got home from work. Welcome home. Just like I told you, I quit my job today. I reported to my husband again just to be sure. Suddenly, he gave me a stern look.
What? You really quit? Why? You're going to be a bum?
Huh? I almost blurted out the same words as my husband. Hadn't I been talking about this all along and hadn't he been listening? Who's quitting work? Listen, I've been telling you this for a while. I'm not going to stop working. I'm going independent.
Going independent? That's just a fancy excuse, isn't it? Even up to now, you've just been lounging around at home with your laptop open. I can't even tell if you're working or playing. You're just saying you're going independent so you can play on your computer and feel like you're working, right?
Did my husband just say something outrageous? I wonder if the reason why working from home is not understood is because there are a certain number of people who think like this. Playing? I am properly working. I prepared to argue back, ready for a fight. I understand why you might feel that way, but I've been working properly, doing housework in between, and I don't think I've ever slacked off on my work, housework, or child rearing, have I?
Since you're at home, it's only natural that you do the housework and child rearing. It's your job.
I let out a sigh at his words. If that's the case, you should be earning a decent income. Your salary has been lower since you switched jobs, right? Right now, I'm the one earning more. If I were a stay-at-home wife, maybe that would be acceptable, but that's not the case, is it? And in fact, I'm contributing more to our household income.
But you're quitting, right? So you're a bum.
My husband sighed and walked out of the living room. We can't even have a proper conversation so it doesn't even turn into a fight. I thought things would go back to normal the next day, but then my husband came back and stopped in front of the table. Wondering what was going on, my husband spoke.
A wife who doesn't bring in money is useless. Write this down and let's get a divorce.
From out of nowhere, my husband laid divorce papers on the table. For a moment, I was confused, but I accepted it out of anger at his actions. Really? Are you sure about this? With that, my husband gave a sly smile.
Of course. I'm not obligated to support a housewife who doesn't work.
Oh, I see. It's futile to say anything to this man. I can't do anything about it. But we have a son, so divorce isn't that simple. When I brought this up, my husband laughed it off.
You take him with you. Raising kids is a mother's job, right? Besides, he doesn't look like me at all. Whose kid is he?
I couldn't believe my ears. My husband has gradually stopped playing with our son and now hardly talks to him at all, but I never imagined he would say such a thing. How can you say that? He's your son through and through.
You're just saying that because you want child support, right?
Feeling insulted, I raised my voice. Well then, go ahead and get a DNA test or whatever, but you do realize what happens if he turns out to be your son, right?
Yeah, I'll pay child support or whatever if you can prove it.
Our son has been through a lot, but he would be transferring to a new school from the new academic year. We'll live in my parents' house and he'll go to school there. My work can be done anywhere, and actually this environment is more conducive to my research on IT and agriculture. Our son also seems to be enjoying helping out with farm work, and he listens intently, eyes shining whether he understands or not when I talk about my work. Before my son and I moved out, the results of the DNA test came back, affirming the father-son relationship between my husband and our son. If I talked to him based on this, he might reconsider the divorce. It would be better for our son to have both parents. That's what I thought as I was about to talk to my husband, but my son, noticing that something was different about me, said, "It's okay if Dad isn't around." Surprised, I asked my son why. Then, a shocking truth came to light. My son claimed that my husband was having an affair. Apparently, when he was playing with his friends after school, he saw my husband walking arm in arm with a young woman. It seems he's seen it several times. After he came back from our country home, my son seemed deep in thought. Turns out he had witnessed my husband's infidelity, but it seems he didn't want to break the news to me, fearing it would upset me. I can't say my husband hadn't been acting suspiciously. Since he's changed jobs, he's been coming home late and started bringing his cell phone even to the bathroom, but I just assumed it was normal behavior for a busy worker. I never even considered divorce, so I probably didn't entertain the idea that he might be cheating. Is it possible that the idea that he was persistently telling me that I was cheating on him was because he was cheating? When I thought that, I couldn't help but feel ashamed and consulted with my mom friends. To my surprise, she confessed to having seen my husband with a woman who looked like a mistress. Moreover, my friend had instinctively taken a photo of the scene with her phone and was contemplating whether to tell me. If he wanted to cheat, he could have done it somewhere less conspicuous. Probably thinking I'd be homebound because I work from home, my husband surprisingly had been going on local dates. While my husband was in the shower, I pretended to have something to do in the bathroom, checked his phone, and conveniently found messages from the woman he was allegedly seeing, and I saved the evidence. I also found discarded receipts in our room which indicated my husband's whereabouts. Gathering evidence of his infidelity wasn't as difficult as I thought. Through my lawyer, I'm demanding alimony and child support. I didn't think he would pay willingly, so I involved a lawyer. As expected, I received a call from my husband. To my surprise, my husband even showed up at my parents' house, which he despised visiting.
What is this all about?
When I answered the doorbell, my husband started shouting. Isn't it clear? The amount claimed for damages and child support. Oh, and the DNA test results too. You said you would pay child support if paternity was confirmed, right? So make sure you do. Also, you know what this is about, right? Compensation for infidelity.
I was beyond anger and found myself laughing. My husband kept denying any infidelity. Of course I no longer bought his words. I snatched the envelope he was holding, took out its contents. These are the proofs of your infidelity, so that's the claim for damages. You get it, right? You kept saying that I was being unfaithful, but it seems that idea only came up because you were the one cheating. Moreover, the woman you were cheating with isn't from your previous workplace. To make things worse, she's married and her husband is your colleague. You moved jobs not because you were headhunted like you bragged about, but probably because it got uncomfortable after the affair. I never thought you were cheating when you said you had overtime. While sighing, I stated the facts and my husband glared at me. This is a setup. Anyone could forge these photos.
His stupidity left me too drained to argue. Well, you might think it's fabricated, but that is genuine.
What? Why?
Because I'm not so idle as to make fake pictures, and I'm the one who obtained this evidence. I grew frustrated as my husband kept insisting it was fake. Surely you must be worried about another alimony claim. I guess your current salary isn't as low as you made it out to be. The reason you couldn't contribute to our household expenses was because you were paying off the alimony from your affair, wasn't it? I knew something was off. You were secretly making payments from your salary to the ex-husband of your mistress, weren't you? Well, that sure would drain your money, but don't worry, you'll be paying again this time around. It seemed as though he and his mistress believed they were fated partners who had mistakenly married others. If that were the case, he should have just divorced me. But I guess he didn't want to divorce me because he knew he would have less disposable income. This time, my husband was so adamant because he genuinely thought I had cheated in the past and that our son wasn't his. That it was really his son. Hadn't his wife been having an affair? That was what the mistress had manipulated him into believing. Considering he could doubt me based on such claims, it's definitely the right decision to get a divorce. Anyway, we're getting divorced. We're already living separately, so there shouldn't be any issues. My husband's expression hardened at my words, but I just laughed it off. Oh, I suppose there might be one issue. You're probably having a tough time maintaining the house, aren't you? You can't even use the washing machine or take out the trash. But you'll be evicted if you let it become a dump, so you better clean up. I have no desire to return to such a place. I won't be returning to that house. Do your best with your mistress. Oh, and I want the alimony and child support in one lump sum. I don't want to deal with unpaid installments. Even if you have to get into debt, you should pay it off first. Thank you.
Hey, wait.
Despite the desperate look on his face and the cries in the hallway, when he realized no one was paying him any attention, he dejectedly walked out, got into his car, and drove off. Apparently, he was surprisingly upset by the fact that it was proven that our son was indeed his. I guess he lost faith in his mistress, who kept insisting that they weren't related. The divorce with my husband was finalized smoothly after that. As promised, I received the alimony and child support in one lump sum. He couldn't afford it even after dipping into his savings, so he dutifully took out a loan. When I made a claim for damages against the mistress, a huge argument broke out between her and my ex-husband. She was outraged, yelling, "Why should I pay damages?" But it's only natural since she was the one who had an affair with a married man. They had to leave the apartment we lived in because they couldn't afford the rent. They've now moved to a rundown apartment, and the mistress seems unhappy about it, but they have nowhere else to go, so they're reluctantly living together. Meanwhile, I'm fully back on track with my work, and I'm enjoying every day. When I got a job related to IT, I never thought I would have a future like this, but it's like a dream that what I've studied is helping my family's agriculture. With the adoption of IT, the hours of work in the field have been reduced, and my parents are glad to say that it has lessened their physical burden significantly. My son has started middle school, and I was worried whether he'd fit in, but he's off to school today, bright and cheery. He still loves spending time in the fields, but he's also shown an interest in my work, and recently, he started asking me to teach him how to use the computer. I know it might seem like I'm a doting parent, but I can't help but look forward to the future.